today we're going to be stenciling. This is something, whether it's a customer or a fellow artist comes in and they ask me about my technique. This is something I used to do to walls of customers' homes for many years, and it's not only for walls, it's obviously for many other things. If you can paint it, you could probably stencil it. It's not hard to do, but if it's not something familiar to you, I get it. So I'm going to step you through it. Let me just explain. We're going to be using paint, blue tape, a paper towel, a palette of some sort, could be a paper plate, a damp rag for the possible oops, and of course our stencil is a compass rose that I purchased from a vendor on Etsy. Feel free to find your own, but I highly suggest you go to your local store like mine where they have paint supplies and stencils and stamps and transfers and the like, and they're the best equipped to help you and help you find the product best for your project. And let's go have some fun. Let's get started. All right, so here we go. We have the stencil already down to save you the time and boring part of aligning it. A lot of times, you know, depending on the stencil, you can do it kind of by eye. Something like this, I like to just at least eyeball it, rough it. So that's about 4.5, and I have, and oh, I'm doing it to the actual cut. Some smaller stencil companies don't necessarily center the stencil with the acetate or the mylar or whatever it is. I did know the name of it, but you know. So I do it to the actual cuts when I'm measuring. And like I said, we have the stencil, we have our end table, we have our paper towel. This is just so I can get the paint out. We're using, like I said, the Modern Masters. It's the metallic paint. Oh, it's Olympic Gold Opaque. And I just wanted to show you, I have the one stencil brush all set to go, but I have another. Don't mind the noise. Our door is open. It's still a decent time of year here on Cape Cod, and we leave the door open when we can. So hopefully we'll have some peace and quiet just long enough to get started on this video. I'm taking the tape. See what happens if you're stenciling with the stencil brush? You can get a lot of movement on the brush, and that can show up as loose brush strokes. These round bristles that's flat on the end, densely bristled. These are stencil brushes. This is what you want to use, but you want to control the spread. So, I mean, this has a little bit of movement, but nothing like it was before. And it's a simple thing to do, just to contain the spread of the bristles. We have, off camera, I have a little bowl of water. Yes, it's an old dog bowl. I have my old trusty palette. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little scoop of gold. Don't need a lot. You can always add more, but it'd be pain putting it back in the jar after. All right, we'll leave that. We'll pull from the popsicle stick too, because I don't want to waste it. Waste not, want not. All right, so I'm actually going to lightly dampen the brush and just kind of work it into the bristles, and then, believe it or not, kind of tap it out. We don't want it wet. So this is what we're gonna do. I have two different size brushes because this will be better for the smaller parts. I have one even smaller, but it's really kind of not worthwhile. And then this is for the bigger parts of the stencil. What we're gonna do, we're gonna work this paint. We're gonna work most of that out of the brush. And just to make sure we're working it out good, we're gonna tap it on the paper towel. Make sure we're getting the edges clean on that, because a lot of times you get a buildup on the edges of the brush. So, and I don't have the camera so that I can see, so hopefully everything is in view. And then I'm just gonna start. Now there's different views of thought. You can tap, 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 If you're wearing earplugs and it doesn't bother you, go right ahead. Not that I won't tap, but I prefer to do, it's kind of a swirling motion. So what you want to do is you concentrate on the edges, especially when you have fresh paint on your brush. All right. We have it all taped down, so it's not going to move. People say to spray some glue on it. I don't believe you need to. I've never used the glue. I find it to be a pain. And you can just keep lifting it this way, just to see where you're at. Tap it out on the paper towel and add a little more. Just at the edges. You can always pull it out into the center more. You'll see it more as on the bigger spot. And then something like this, I'm not going to try and get right along just the edges. This part, we're just going to kind of do the ends deeper and leave the center of the arc lighter. See, we're just really just scraping it on there. And you probably can't even see a thing on there, but if I lift it up, you can start seeing it. And we're going to be building, it says opaque, but metallics are always pretty sheer. So as this keeps drying, we could just kind of quickly go over a little bit more. See how that works? If this were straight out paint, you'd get a much bigger wow factor out of this. But because it's metallic, it's going to be a little more subtle and we can build on it, which is great actually. See? If you really want to like hit like one spot, you can tap that area. Like I'll put a little more paint on it, wipe the edges off, and really just tap along those areas. If you find you get something you don't like, is if you have a sealed surface, you can usually blend it out with your finger or Q-tip or something right away. If you really don't like it, you can usually just wipe it off with your wet rag, which I have right here. And come to find out, somehow I got a little gold paint where it doesn't belong. So, sealed surface, yay me. There, wipes off. I don't know where that gold paint came from. It must be on me because, anyways. And let's keep moving. Let me show you what we do on the larger surface, because this is the small surface. Let's see, this is the small brush. Same thing, works the same way. And I'm not even pulling from the pull. I'm just pulling from this other swirl. And again, I can tap to get a little more emphasis on certain parts. It's going to be really subtle. I'd rather start too light than put it on where it's so thick and pasty. It's just a pain. And again, the metallics take a little more patience. And I want to show you this part, because I'm not going to have you sit here and watch everything. It'll take you a while. It won't take too long, but for a video, it'll take a while. See, this I can do a little bit bigger strokes, and I can keep moving it, moving it. Got some built up on the edges, I can see. Okay. See how I'm going? It's getting both this side and that side. Be mindful of that when you're at joints, that you're doing all sides of that open section. And like right in here, you're getting a little bit of that as well. If you didn't want to hit that with this color, you'd want to mask it off with a piece of tape. Because you could do different colors, just mask off parts of the stencil. You know, you just take, I always, by the way, I always never throw away like this was hardly used. It was just a quick little striping. So I have a little stash just taped up against my wall. So I pulled from my little stash, but you could just take like a piece of this if you wanted, tear it off, and you could mask, you know, anything along here that you wanted to do in a different color, stencil away, and then reverse the mask and do your other color. It's just little ideas, nothing you won't learn anywhere else. But yes, I used to do this like all over patterns on walls and multicolors and see? We'll have to let like one layer dry and we'll go over it again because again, it's metallics. See, it goes really pretty easy. And we just keep going around and around and around. If you get these little lifts, be patient with them. As long as you're putting your pressure down and swirling and not moving it, it's not gonna go anywhere. Just be mindful that that's a little bit, what's the word? Not set in stone here, but you know, it could bleed a little paint. Just be patient. And I've even taken parts where I've actually taped them back down. It takes a little patience and a real thin piece of tape and wrapping it around or something. But you can fix the stencils as well. So we're making progress. And I'll check back in when we get closer to the end. We'll see you on the other side. Okay, we're rounding it up and I'm almost through all my little pool of paint here. And we actually went through a little more paint than normal because again, it's metallics. And I just wanted to show you, I ended up tapping out some of these ends because I really don't want to do a second coat. Where I wanted it, you want emphasis to be on the edges. And I still did swirl, but where I want more of my emphasis, where I'm spending more of my time, I'm tapping it out with more paint loaded on the brush. It's kind of like my cheat, I guess. Because if this was regular paint, like I said, it would show up so much better. Metallics are just a little bit, you know, funky, I guess. Not gonna be as opaque, even though it says Olympic gold opaque. It's not really opaque. They're just kidding. They're just messing with you. So even when I'm tapping, I wanna keep all my emphasis to the edge. If I was tapping the whole thing, I would tap, 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 but then really tap at the edges. So tap a little more delicate towards the center, and then really add the emphasis at the edges. And that's really gonna give you that cool, you know, worn stencil look. Oops, sorry about moving the camera. We're gonna add a little more paint, and I just wanna show you that one larger section again. Actually, we can just, for the last little bit, just pull from the lid. All right, so just tap, tap, tap. And I'm doing these little dots darker because they get lost. And so I really, in this particular one, I do the dots so they do show up. Otherwise, why bother putting them in there? You know, it's like, really. done them and it's like, I always find, because I've done this stencil many times, and those little dots, boom, 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 they just kind of disappear. I don't understand, even with the regular paint, they just sort of disappear in there. And again, I'm adding a lot more emphasis at these four corners, so I'm going on heavy, and I'm working on this slick surface, so that's not helping matters any. It's really moving the paint. So that's why I'm doing more tapping rather than the spinning, the rubbing it on, the burnishing it on, however you want to say it. And we're going to want this to dry really well before I try to put on my water-based finish. And this table will be done for its last 2 coats of varnish. Should be done, water-based varnish. This should be done tomorrow. But this is gonna dry tonight, I think. I don't think it'll be ready before I leave tonight. It's already evening here, so it's best not to rush things. I find you always pay for it. So like I said, you get little areas you didn't like, blend it out with your fingertip. I was working with a gal in a private class here once, and she had said, I now know why you don't like to wear gloves. And I says, why? And she says, because you're always petting the furniture. And I'm always wiping up the edges of drips of paint or varnish with my fingers, like constantly feeling it, seeing where I'm at. And it's just paint, and that's what's the nice thing about working with water-based products. Is we don't have to worry about that. It cleans off. Even if it doesn't clean off that night, look, it goes away. It goes away. Not necessarily on nail polish, is why I never wear nail polish anymore. You see, the bigger area here, I'm swirling it to kind of get that real subtle center area. And as I start getting into the edges, I'll start my tapping, because I can do that with the paint a little heavier on the load. See? And again, as I'm working it out towards the center, it's going softer. At the edge, it's heavy. And as I work into the center, it's softer. And it doesn't have to be perfect and consistent. If it was perfect and consistent, everyone would think that it was done by a robot. It was printed on. This is hand done. Even on walls, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't want it to be totally perfect and symmetrical and all that. The distress of it is what really makes it kind of cool. And it's kind of therapeutic just sitting here. Kind of like coloring in the lines. Swirl on the edges. And then really emphasize some of the edges with the extra load on the paint here. And this, I think, is already done. I'm just going to make sure I got enough coverage on this S. It looks light. maybe a little more here. It's been a beautiful fall here on Cape Cod. All right, let's see where we're at. See how we like it so far. As long as we're not moving the stencil. Let's tape down. And hopefully that shows up on the camera. I think I like that. A lot. Maybe just a little more here, just a little. The NE didn't want to show it that well, so let's see. And SE looks good. I think we're good. It's coming off. And that is stenciling. Again, you can do this with any paint as long as, you know, painting with a brush, you can use it on a stencil. And the best thing to do with your stencils is clean it right away, and that's what I'm gonna go do now. So, bye, and until next time, take care. Hi, I just wanted to say one more thing. I wanted to show you, it's not letting me spin this around. I don't know why it's not letting me spin it around. I want to show you the stencil, right? It has layers of previous paints on here. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to take like a little scrub brush in warm soapy water, and I'm going to work that out, and maybe even like a dull like Teflon, you know, one of those pot scrubber kind of things, or Adobe brush. Just being very careful not to bend these edges, especially these little points, because the W is already kind of close. I got to really watch that. But taking care of the stencil, you can use it over and over and over again. But if you get the built-up edges on it, you're gonna have to put it to the dump. But take care of it. You can use it forever. I just wanted to show you. I don't know how we're gonna spin this around. It won't let me. There's no little thing to let me spin around. Let me show you. That's the table. It's got the drawer in it, but we're gonna have to get the hardware on. I don't want to put the sealer on yet. It is a Hitchcock. It's really cool, and I have the actual hanging sticker that was on the knob when it was first bought. So that's pretty cool. And that's that. Officially, that's that. If you have any questions, down below, you know what to do. Post your questions. We'll answer them. Go to our website. You can contact us there, and our Facebook, Instagram, they're all /Seaporium. Bye. You take care.